Hello everyone, I am Mrs. Asha Lata. I am the Assistant Professor in English from the Department of SNH, St. Peter's Engineering College. It's so nice to get in touch with all of you for the first time. I hope you enjoy this session. To start with, we will start with Unit 1 of the English Theory class. And Unit 1 is, as you can see it on the board, of parents and children. And this is written by a very celebrated essayist of the year 1561 to 1626. He was born in the year 1561 and he died in the year 1626. Alright. Francis Bacon was born on the 22nd of January 1561. Alright. And he was not just an essayist. He was also an Attorney General. He was also the Lord Chancellor of the Britain Kingdom. He was basically an Irish. When he was born, he was an Irish. All right. And talking more about Francis Bacon, he was a person who did different types of jobs. He was a multi-talented person. He was into politics, he was into prime leadership in the Britain government, and due to certain reasons he had to resign from politics because he was involved in corruption which was actually not proved. Alright, and that was the time when he took a break and he started writing essays in English. And if you look at the board, the essay here talks about parents and children. This is a very interesting topic. Even as I explain to you what exactly it is, you would definitely enjoy this topic. But before that, let me speak a few lines about, Francis Bacon, which would be helpful to you to understand more about the essayist Francis Bacon. Alright, to start with, there are some popular quotes which, Francis Bacon has quoted. And one of them is, this is something which is really useful for us students and and teachers as well. The quote talks about some books are to be tasted, others to be swallowed, and some few to be chewed and digested. The quote itself is so interesting. Some books are to be tasted. What does it mean by tasted? He means to say that some are quickly read. You just read it quickly, which means you just have to get a taste of the book. And some books are to be swallowed. Swallowed is, where you are reading it thoroughly and you're reading it slowly to understand what the book is all about. And then some few are to be chewed and digested. Now some books are, to be read thoroughly, slowly, so as you can understand and at the same time enrich yourself. So this was a quote given by Francis Bacon, which I would like to repeat again. It says, some books are to be tasted, others to be swallowed, and some few to be chewed and digested. Now there's another popular quote given by Francis Bacon, and this is something which is apt for the present situation or the present scenario we are all in, right? It says, cure the disease and kill the patient. Listening to it is so dangerous, right? It is so hazardous. Cure the disease and kill the patient. What do you think he meant by this quote? Yeah, very apt in our present situation. Let me explain to you what is happening right now so that you will be able to understand this quote by Francis Bacon. This is a time where we are going through a pandemic situation, isn't it? We are all going through that scary virus called corona. Now very recently you must have read in papers that the doctors in Osmania University, in the Osmania hospital, and the nurses in Gandhi hospital were on a protest. And why were they protesting? They were protesting against the government. 200 to 300 doctors, all the junior doctors were in front of Gandhi hospital protesting against the government. In the same order, many nurses and health workers in Osmania General Hospital were protesting. Now, what was the reason for them to protest? They were protesting against the government because the government was not giving them or supplying them with the required precautionary measures. Many of them complained that the situation is so pathetic in the hospitals. There's no hygiene, no masks provided, no uniforms and no sanitization properly done. All this was their protest. They said the government should give us all that we require to keep ourselves safe. If you see that many doctors doctors and nurses and health workers are being affected by corona, just because they are helping the patients who are already affected by corona, and because they are helping them, they are also infected. And what they want the government to do is to see that they are not infected when they are working with those corona patients, and they provide them with the precautionary measures. Now if you look at their demand, they are not wrong, isn't it? They are not wrong in protesting. In fact, they are putting their life at stake, isn't it? They are also in a dangerous situation, even as they are helping people who are suffering from COVID-19. So they were asking for the government. But another thing that you need to notice is, at this point of time, what was happening to the patients who were already on the hospital beds? They were helpless. They were without any help. Nobody to, take care of them. Nobody to give them medicines. Nobody to supply them with food. They were also in a very pathetic situation during these 2 days where the doctors and the nurses went on a strike. Now what is happening here? Because of the strike, because of the protests that the doctors and the nurses were, the government had to heed to their demands. The government had to agree, saying that yes, we are going to supply you with all that you need, but now get back to your duty. Now this took at least 2 days for the government. The government took 2 days to take a decision on this. Now this was not just their demand. They also had another demand where there were many health workers and nurses and doctors who were working on temporary or contract basis. Now what they said, what they wanted from the government is that their services be regularized. Now they are all on contract, they are paid only on the days that they come and serve the people, and not on the other days that they don't come. But if they are regularized, they get a complete month's salary. Now, in this demand, this was another demand. They said not just providing us with our, precautionary measures and all that we are asking for, but you should also regularize our services. Now, regularizing so many employees at the same time is actually a difficult task. The government has to think, decide, hold meetings. There are so many different, things that have to go about before regularizing them. So it took them some time. Now 2 days. Just imagine the plight of those corona patients for 2 days. They were helpless. They were some of them were on the bed, on the deathbed. So difficult. And what kind of anxiety they must have given their family. Nobody to take care of their patients there. Now after 2 days, the government agreed and everybody went back to their duties. But now what has happened here at the quote which I just mentioned to you? Cure the disease, kill the patient. Now what was the disease here? The protest. They protested against the government. So the government agreed to it and they cured their disease. But at the same time, what happened? Because of this protest for 2 days or maybe even longer, they might have been patients who must have lost their lives, isn't it? So curing the disease and killing the patient. This was actually considered a real joke in the 1500s to the 1700s. It was, a sort of sarcasm. People used to use this quote in different scenarios like the one I just mentioned to you. So these were, a few of Francis Bacon's quotes which had become very, very popular. Another, aspect about Francis Bacon, for him to become popular, is he was a person behind the invention of the scientific method. Now, what is a scientific method? In order to understand what is a scientific method, I have to talk about a few things which happened before the scientific method. And before the scientific method, there was a method which was called deduced method, deductive method, which was actually prophesied, or which was, spoken about by Aristotle, the philosopher. You must have heard about him, right? So I'll give you a simple example to understand the difference between the Aristotelian method and the Baconian method. Baconian is Francis Bacon, and his method is the scientific method. Now, what did Aristotle do? I'll give you an example. He said that life without water is impossible, right? He said life without water is impossible. You know it, even I know it. And any person in this world would understand that life without water is impossible. Alright, this is what Aristotle said. Now when it comes to Francis Bacon, he has come up with a scientific method. Now what did he say is, yes, what Aristotle is saying is right. While, life without water is impossible. But then that is just an observer's method. He only observed certain things and said life without water is impossible, which you can say and I can say. That was what Francis Bacon argued. Then he said, how about life in desert then? Do you think everybody living in the desert are perishing? Yeah, there might be, life where there is no water absolutely, dense forests. There might not be, a pool or a pond somewhere nearby. but there are people, there are, there are living things happening there, isn't it? Animals are living and surviving in the forests. People are living in the desert areas and they are surviving, isn't it? So he was arguing, he was, trying to contrast and contradict what Aristotle was saying. He says Aristotle only observed, he only studied, and he told us that life without water is impossible. But then, to see in reality, people in deserts are living, people in areas where there is no water are also surviving, right? So he says, in order to pass a statement, in order to prove something, you should approach it scientifically. Now, what is scientifically? Experiment, and then, research, study about that particular aspect, and then come to a conclusion which is more valid and clear, isn't it? Now, what did Francis Bacon do in his scientific method? He experiments situations without water. He goes to different areas, different places to experiment how people are surviving without water. And then if without water people are unable to survive, then he proves it right. He says, yes, people are unable to survive without water because of this experiment that we conducted. And now I agree that without water, life is impossible. Now that was his approach. He was never vague. He never spoke things, without a proper, proof, without being able to, prove what he's saying is right. So he was considered the father. He was considered the father of scientific method. He was a person who did a lot of experiments, who researched, who studied, and then came to a conclusion. And very soon he became a very popular person for the scientific method. People started, earlier everybody depended upon Aristotle theory, but then after he started this, they started believing on his method. Now coming to a few more things about Francis Bacon. He was also considered the father of empiricism. Empiricism is where he is exactly in contrast to what Aristotle said, right? He was a person who was behind the scientific method. So most of the things, whatever he has written, even in this essay, the essay that is written by him of parents and children, are not spoken vaguely, are not spoken out of his own experience. He has experimented. He has experimented the parents, he has experimented the society, he has experimented the children, and then he has written this essay. Now what does this essay do? Of parents and children. He is talking about parents and about children, where he is giving suggestions to parents and as well as children. Now, before I go deeper into this essay, let me ask you something. How many of your parents have decided your course of study? Okay, once you're done with your 10th class, you had to do your intermediate, right? So how many of you children were given a choice to choose your own subjects? Yeah, the Indian culture and the scenario in India is such that children are not given an opportunity to select their subjects, isn't it? Most of the time it is the parents who do it, right? The parents select your subject. And even now, if you are into engineering stream, I am sure that some of you are not really interested in the engineering stream. And it was your parents' desire to see you as an engineer. Most of the time what happens is, the parents have, when they grew up, they have so many dreams, so many desires, so many goals and so many ambitions. And unfortunately, some of the parents are unable to meet those, dreams and desires. What do? They thrust it upon you. If they were not able to become an engineer, they say to it that you become an engineer. If the mother wanted to become a doctor and she was not able to be a doctor, it has to be you who's going to be the doctor in the family, isn't it? So their desires and their ambitions are thrust upon you, and you are asked to do what they like, right? So now such is the scenario that the essayist Francis Bacon is talking in his essay. He talks about parents and children. The first thing to start off with, he says that the children should be given an opportunity to choose their field of study, to choose their profession, to choose the job that they would like to work on, to choose their interests. But at the same time, he contradicts, saying that children are unable to, choose their own professions. Children are unable to choose their own, course of study, because parents are more experienced than the children, and they would be a better choice to explain to the children why they should be going into a particular field and not into the field of their choice. So there is a lot of contradiction that is happening in his essays. Now to start off with, Let me see. Okay, I don't know if you can see him, but here I have a picture of, Francis Bacon. I hope you can see this. He is Francis Bacon that we are talking about, right? Now coming to what did actually Francis Bacon talk about, right? Now, to start with, he's talking about griefs and joys of parents. Alright, I am not reading the text for you. Today's class will be only a summary about of parents and children. Okay, in my next class, I am going to read the text to you and I am going to explain it line by line so that you have a better understanding. This is just to give you an overview of this essay so that you will be prepared for my next class, right? Okay, to start with, Francis Bacon speaks about griefs and joys of parents. Now, what are griefs and what are joys of parents? Yeah, parents, they labor, they work very hard. Sometimes, I have seen parents, in fact, even my parents, they worked overtime. They work in more number of shifts. They work really hard. Now, why do they work so hard? Yeah, they don't take rest. There is no holidaying for parents. They don't relax at all. Now, what is the reason behind all this? They want to see their children happy. They want to see their children satisfied. So that is the grief that parents go through. They go through so much and they do it very happily. They are not really concerned that they're not really very healthy. They are unable to go to work every day, but they still push themselves to go to work just to see that they provide for their children and keep their children happy. So this is the first instance that Francis Bacon is talking about parents. The grief, they go through so much of grief, sadness, sorrow, hard work, but they do all that for their family, basically for their children. Every parent is concerned about their children, isn't it? Anybody, whether it is your parent or if it is my parent, they're all concerned about their children. So that is the grief. Now what is the joy? When do you think parents rejoice? When do you think they are joyful and happy? Yes, what you're thinking is right. Yeah, when you are successful, when a child is successful, when the child is prospering, when the child is well settled, when the child is receiving salary, which is more than what the parent received. No parent is jealous or envious, when the child is getting more than what the parent is getting as an amount, as a salary, isn't it? In fact, the parent is very happy that my son and my daughter is earning more than me. They're so happy. So, your satisfaction, your profession, your joy actually gives them a lot of happiness. So, this is the first instance that Francis Bacon is talking about, the grief and sorrow of parents. Now, coming to the next incident, he talks about difference between human and animal species. Now, there is a lot of difference. There is a lot of difference between human and animal. See, animals and humans can speak. The animals they use their sounds to express their feelings. But human beings can actually speak. They can speak words to express their feelings, right? Now, human beings have a memory. Animals don't have a memory, right? Even if they have a memory, they will not be able to tell you what that memory is. If you, for example, you had a very wonderful experience. Now, since you are very fresh, you just finished your 10th standard 2 years ago, you must be definitely remembering your farewell party. How many of you might have forgotten your farewell parties? You would not, right? Because it was a very memorable incident that happened in your life. It was joyous at the same time very sorrowful because you are getting separated from all your friends. But thanks to technology, you can still be in touch with your friends even after you leave school. You have Instas, you have WhatsApp, you have Facebook, Twitter and whatnot to be in connection with your friends. My time, guys, we didn't even have a landline at home to be able to talk to our friends. We were deprived of all those, technical luxuries. But you have them, isn't it? So how many of you will not be able to remember that farewell party? Definitely all of you would remember because it was a wonderful, joyous expression, isn't it? Now, this experience you must have also shared with your friends in your intermediate, isn't it? You had this memory in your mind and you shared, and sometimes even as you were sharing, you must have also been in tears because you are missing all your friends. You can do this. Do you think animals can do this? They cannot do it, right? So there is a difference between animal emotions and human emotions. So here, what is Francis Bacon talking? He's talking about valuing human emotions. Emotions, sadness, happiness, chaotic, confusion, all these are emotions which, the parents have to be concerned about their children. The children's emotions should be taken care of. They are not animals. You can't treat children like animals. You have to consider their emotions. This is another thing that Francis Bacon is talking about, right? And the next aspect about this essay is unequal affection of parents. I'm sure everybody that is listening to this lecture would agree with this. Parents show, partiality at home, isn't it? They do. I agree with that. If you are 2 or 3 kids in the family, the first one is respected and loved a lot. The last one is pampered a lot, and the second child is hanging between, right? Not much love, not much respect, and not much of pampering. So it happens, guys. It happens in most of the families where one child is favored over the other children. Now he is especially talking about this attitude of parents. He says parents should not treat the children unequally. They should give equal importance to all the children, right? That's very, very important. No child should feel deprived of their parents' love. They should not feel rejected and dejected. This is another suggestion that Francis Bacon is giving the parents, that the parents should not treat children unequally or in a partial or biased manner, right? And then coming to some more suggestions about the children to the parents. Now here, I don't know if your parents are following this, but we follow this, right? If the children are given pocket money, aren't they? They're given pocket money. And what he's talking to the parents is, the pocket money should not be fixed to a child. They should not say that 500 rupees is your pocket money for this month. Now the child is growing up. There might be different needs and desires and wants for the children. They go to a college, they mingle with friends, and they look at all the different things in the that the friends possess, and sometimes they might have the desire to possess them, isn't it? So Francis Bacon says the best thing is to avoid giving them a limited pocket money. Don't give something which is pocket money. In case the money that the parent is giving the child is not sufficient, what happens to the child? He resorts to different modes of cheating, deceiving, in order to gain money, right? And these are some certain things he thinks that the parents have encouraged the child to do by fixing the pocket money. So he says never to fix pocket money for the children, but give them money that is sufficient for their requirements. This is another thing that Francis Bacon talks. And very, very popular example in the Indian scenario, the method of competition. Yes, if 2 neighbors sit together, what is the talk? Yeah, you're right. Yes, it is about your rank in EAMCET, your marks that you achieved, the percentage of marks that you got in your 10th class or your inter, isn't it? Basically, this is the talk. And every parent is trying to highlight their child, trying to show that their child is better than his child or their child, right? This is what happens in every Indian family. Right now, this is another thing which Francis Bacon discourages. He says never to give that competitive spirit among children in the family. Usually, sometimes it happens. Parents, when they talk to the children, they say, look at your elder brother, how well he studies, look at his percentage, and what are you? You are a waste. Yeah, you don't study well, you don't get good marks. And the right example for this is the movie called B.Tech. Isn't it? Have you seen that movie? Yeah, the movie where Raghuvaran, I don't remember the name of the movie, but Raghuvaran, it is about an engineering student where he is continually, Raghuvaran B.Tech, I suppose, where he is continually, compared to his younger brother. See, comparing a younger one to the elder one is okay, but comparing the elder one to the younger one is even more drastic. You can't take it. It's so painful. You are the eldest and you are being compared to the younger one. This happens in that movie, right? Raghuvaran B.Tech, it happens continually through the movie. Now, this is something that Bacon says should be discouraged. Don't encourage competition among children. Don't compare the first child with the second child or the second child with the third child. He says every child has his own ability, has its own talent and creativity. So don't compare. Another suggestion by Francis Bacon, not to compare children, not to have that competitive spirit. And another suggestion that he talks about is children cannot decide their future. Now these days, we become so tech savvy. Parents are so busy with their own jobs, with their own careers. They don't concentrate much on their children's career. They just leave it to the child. You select your choice. You select your future. You select your profession. He says even this is not right. When I am asking the parent to select a choice for the student, I am also not asking the parents to just leave it to the child. This, because the children, your children are hardly 17 or 18 years of age. Yes, do you have the experience about the world around you? Your parents know the world around you. Your parents can make the right choice for you. Your parents know where you have a bright future. You cannot really select your profession or your future. He says the parents should guide the student. The parents should guide the children in selecting a proper future or a proper profession for themselves. So in whichever area you are interested, right? Talk to your parents about it. Tell them what is your interest and allow them to intervene, help you make a decision, right? Or there's another thing that he talks about. If you are good enough to select your profession, if you're, see, there are so many students, my students, I've seen so many of them, they have a very clear picture in their mind. This is what I want to become 3 years or 4 years from now. They have a plan ready, everything. If plan A and plan B. If plan A fails, they have plan B ready. So this is how some students are. Very clear, from the beginning. I have seen so many students, from a very tender age, they decide to become doctors or engineers. Right? And whatever they do from that tender age is all related to that particular, field of their study. I know of a student, a boy, from his childhood, I have seen him, dismantling a computer, dismantling a mixer and grinder. Any toy that the parent bought to the student, he used to dismantle it. Those cars, you boys are very interested in those fast racing cars, isn't it? So when such cars were purchased and given to this boy, he used to always dismantle it. He used to look at the inner parts of that car, and then he used to learn how to rearrange them. This was his passion. I have seen him doing it. Sometimes I also heard that once the parents left him home, alone at home, he dismantled the mixer grinder, and he was trying to put them back into shape by the time they came home. So this was something that he wanted to do from his childhood. Now tell me, what do you think he must have become? Yeah? Yes, very good. Mechanical engineer, right? And he chose that option. So from the childhood, he was working towards becoming a mechanical engineer. So, there are some students who have a very clear picture of their profession, who know what to do. Such students, Bacon says, should be given an opportunity. They should be allowed to pursue their talent, their interest. So this is another suggestion that, Bacon is giving to the parents and children. So Of Parents and of Children is basically an essay which is written by Francis Bacon, where he is talking of parents and of children. Now if you remember, I have given you different scenarios where Bacon is talking to parents and Bacon is also talking to children about their their choices. So this is all about the essay. I hope you understood what exactly the essay is going to talk about, and in my next class I am going to read the text to you line by line, and I am going to explain it to you. And I really hope that you were right in front of me, where I could interact with you, talk with you, and question and answer one another. Unfortunately we are doing this online. I hope I could make myself understood. In the next class I am going to talk to you, and I am going to do the lesson of parents and children from your textbook. I hope you had a knowledgeable time with me. Wish you all the best. God bless. Thank you.